Hello, I'm Jermaine, and today we're going to teach you how to build a video wall step by step. One of the first things that we're going to do is locate the power and determine that they're 15 to 20 amps each. It's just a formality. Approach the venue manager or the maitre d', ask them where the power receptacles are, and to make sure that they're 15 to 20 amps. Most venues already have this built in at the venue. If not, the client usually will provide us a generator to plug into. He will know the amperage of all the plugs, being that venues do this 7 days a week, so we're not the first ones to go there. So most times they'll have the proper plugs, and if not, they'll have a generator on site that we can plug into. As you can see, this is all of the equipment that we need. Starting from left to right, we have our base plates, our heavy base plates, our cabling, our video processor, the stages and acrylics that the video wall will rest on, the actual video wall panels, our trussing, the legs for the staging, and the video wall hardware for mounting the panels onto the truss. Additionally, we also have a case of extra heavy duty extension cables just in case we need to run extra long power runs to power our video wall. As you can see, we're in a showroom, but if we're in a hall, power is important, so we need to first determine where we're going to pull power from. Once we know where to pull power from, we can find the best position for our wall, and then we can get started. And now we're ready to get started. The first thing we're going to do is lay out our stages. This is our setup area, so what we're going to do is clear a space for our stages so we can set up our video wall. This is our power cables. What we're doing is we're moving and clearing our workspace so we have a proper area to work and set up our stages. These are the video wall panels. This is our power cables. These are the actual panels. What we do is we line them up and we start opening up the cases. These are our stage frames that the video wall will actually rest on. So we're going to position them out to get good spacing and to see a rough layout of exactly where we're going to go before we physically join them together and put them together. So we're going to lay out the first one. With our stage frames, if you notice, there's two ways you can lay them down. Face up or face down with these holes so that we can put the legs in them. So we're going to lay them face down so that way we can put our legs in and tighten them before we flip them back over. Also notice there are two sides. One side has the lock. One side doesn't have the lock. This is the male side. This is the female side. Female side is empty and the lock can go inside of it. The male side has the lock in it and actually attaches to the other frame. In addition to the male and female sides, when laying out the stage frames, note which orientation the center bar goes in. They should all be oriented the same way. So if you put it down this way, they should all match this way. If you start with it this way, they should all go this way. There are locks on both sides, so you just have to keep in mind which orientation you're doing it and which side the locks are on. For this purposes, we're going to do it the vertical way. Actually, this way. Notice I'm matching up the female side of this one to the male side of that one. Also, I'm keeping the bar straight in the same way as this one. Once again, notice I'm matching up the female side of this one to the male side of that one, and I'm keeping the bar going the same way. And it's very important to pay attention to that. It's easy to get confused because they do look the same on all sides. And we're only going to do 3. After we have our stage frames laid out in a rough ideal of where we're going to line up the stage, what I like to do is get my center point for the room. For this particular setup, we're going to use right where I'm standing as the center point. So this one is going to be lined up as my center for the room, or whether it's the dance floor or however the client wants it according to the floor plan. Once my stages are laid out, the next step is we're going to grab the legs and start to level out the legs. This is a very important step that a lot of people skip or don't take seriously, and it ends up causing problems when we're actually assembling the wall. So don't skip this step right here. The legs come like this, and they have screws on the bottom. One person should be the one leveling the legs so that way they all match. I typically take one finger, whether it's a thumb or my pointer finger. I'm placing it in between to get a nice lip so that way the sides can fit on. You see how my finger goes in there like this? Now they all should match this. So I'm going to take my next one. I'm going to put my finger in here. I'm going to adjust it so that it matches the previous one. See how my finger goes in there on this one? I'm adjusting it to get my knuckle in here on this one. And everyone has different size fingers. So that's why it's important for one person to do it and using the same finger. Otherwise, they'll be unlevel and then you'll have to go around and make sure that it's level again. Leveling is critical to getting a proper, even video wall without a bunch of gaps in the back of it. Our next step is actually fitting the legs to each frame. Anyone want to tighten the nuts, make sure they're tight, not over tight, but enough so that they're secure into each frame. I'm going to repeat that for each corner. Again, tight, but not over tighten. The reason we're not over tightening is because eventually throughout the night, it becomes too hard to remove them. They get stuck. After all our legs are properly secured to the frame, now it's time to flip them over and place them in their final place before locking them together. Again, we're going to line it up with our center point, which is the center of the room or the center of our dance floor. For this purposes, I'm a little bit off, so we're going to go 6 inches that way. Now we're centered with the room and we're ready to lock our panels together. Before we lock our stage frames together, we need to make sure that it's level. Sometimes the floor of the venue isn't level. What I like to do is I call it the one finger. Before we lock them together, I like to use one finger to run across the top to make sure that they're even. If they're not even, you can lift up the lower one, twist the leg until it matches even and it's nice and flush. And repeat that for every frame that's connected together. Now we're lining up our frames together to make sure that they're in proper position to be locked together. Again, male to female, make sure male to female, and that the bars are all facing the same way, whether they're horizontal or vertical. They just all need to be the same way. This is our Allen tool. It's going to come in every book, on every job. We usually have several of these. This is what we call a stage key, and this is what we use to lock the stage frames together. On the male one to the female one, we insert the key, give it a turn clockwise until it comes together. You'll feel it click. Notice it's now strong as one piece. And we'll repeat that for every frame, male to female. Insert the key, turn clockwise until it locks together. On this one, you see it's not locking together. Sometimes these frames get used a lot, so sometimes they get a little bit damaged. Not to fret. Remember I said they have locks on both sides. So what we'll do is we're going to take, since this lock is not locking to this, we're going to take this frame and then position it on the other side where the lock is good to go. So what we're going to do first is remove this. Then we're going to slide this one over. This is now, the one on the end is now going to become our center frame. So we're going to slide this one over. And then we're going to replace it with this frame on the end. Pro tip, we leveled it before on that end, so now we have to re-level it because we moved the position. You see how it's a little off? Now I'm going to have to lower this one because over there the floor was uneven, so now that it has to match on this side. Now we're ready to lock it together. And there we go, locked together. Now that we've locked together our stage frames, we're ready to lay out the acrylic that the base plates will sit on top of. These are very heavy, so always have a person to help you lift and put down. The clear acrylics go down first because these are the ones that actually support the weight. The white ones are decorative. So we're going to put down the clear, heavy-duty clear ones first. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Make sure that you don't clip your fingers in it because they are, again, very heavy. You always want someone to help you with this cart because it will hurt you if it gets damaged or tipped over. Ready?
2,
3. Sometimes these frames don't go in easily, so you need to zhuzh it a little bit to get it in. These frames are aluminum, so they do get bent a little bit. So if you can't force it in, not too hard, you're going to need to remove it and then use a hammer to make it even so that it fits in. So we're going to lift this back out. And while Gavin holds this, I'm going to grab a hammer and bang out the frame a little bit so that it fits. And I need the acrylic to fit. It's just a little bit off and the frame is bent. So I'm going to lightly hammer it because again, these are aluminum, so it's a soft metal. I'm going to lightly hammer it out so that it fits. Again, I'm not destroying the frame, I'm just lightly hammering it so that the acrylic will fit inside. Thank you, Gavin. Now, 1, 2, 3. Two, 3. We call these milks. These are the decorative part of the white stages. The clears are to hold the actual weight. The white ones are to make the stage look pretty. And they just slide right in on top of the clear ones. And we're going to make sure that it fits, same as with the clears, we're going to make sure that they fit snugly into each frame. So now we have our stages locked together, our acrylics down, our milks on top in the proper position. We're happy where it's at. We're going to finish it up by placing the sides on it. The sides are attached by Velcro. They come in sizes that match the legs. We're using 16-inch legs, so they've sent us 16-inch sides. They come in packs of 4. The sides also have Velcro on it to match the frames for placing them onto the sides of the frames. What you're going to do is line up the tops and the corners and just place it on. We're going to make sure that there's not too much black showing and readjust it so that it looks neat. Neatness counts. And we're going to make sure that it doesn't come up too much because people will trip over it. See, this is nice and even now. And I'm going to adjust as needed. See how this one fell? We're going to readjust it to make sure that it's even with the one beside it. Now we're ready to start building our video wall. I know this looks big and intimidating, but it's actually quite simple. We're now ready to start putting together the truss system. We're going to start by laying out our base plates. Before we do that though, we need to determine how many truss that we're going to put up. For video walls that are 15 and 28 panels, we're only going to use 2 truss. For 40 and 50 panel video walls, you must always use 3 truss to support the weight of the video wall so that it does not tip over and hurt anyone. These base plates are very heavy, so always make sure you have someone to help you with laying the base plates out. What we're going to do is we're going to put them 1 on each outside wall. So 1, 2, 3. When we lay it out, we're just going to drop it. 1, 2, 3. That's 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now that we have them kind of where we want, we're going to secure the truss into the base plates before we position them where we're actually going to start to build the wall. I'm taking our truss, and I'm going to place them on the base plate. But before I even secure them into the base plate, a good tip is sometimes the nubbies aren't exactly lined up. So you're going to want to take a pin before you even put it in, and we're going to stick it in each one of the nubbies and make sure that it's pointing towards the center. So that way when the truss actually goes down, it has something to lock into. This one is good to go. On this one, let's check this one. Did this one need to move a little? So you're going to stick the pin in, make sure it's pointed toward the center, and now we're ready to put the truss on top and lock it into place. So we're going to grab our truss, position it on top of the pins, and place it down. We're going to take the pins now and stick them into the hole. And you can push it in with your finger before we hammer them in. Always make sure that your base plate has at least 3 nubbies. 4 is optimal. Never use it if it only has 2. If it only has 2, make sure that you call one of your managers and let them know, and they'll either send you another one or tell you how to attach the nubby so that you make sure that it's secure. Inserting the pins into the base plate to connect the base plate and the truss. Now I'm ready to hammer it in. Provided hammer, I just hit it twice. Again, not too hard because we still need to get it out at the end of the night. So we're not banging it in permanently. Give it good 2 taps. Should be good, sufficient to hold it. 1. Next, we'll rough position our base plate so we can start laying out our video wall panels. Typically, I push this towards the back, line this up with that back line, line the base up with the back line. Back line because it makes it more even and gives a little room in the front. Thing of note, why we level it out and we use shims, it doesn't look like much, but the difference of this 1/4 inch will make the wall not fit together once we get past 20 or 30 panels. You see how the base plate is about 1/4 inch off the stage? This is why we shim the video wall, because this little bit of a difference in the middle will cause it to bow, and then it won't fit together once you get past a bigger wall of 15 to 20 panels. For a shim, I typically will just use a spare acrylic. When I say shim, what I mean is something that matches the height and keeps everything nice and even. So for shims, I typically use a spare piece of acrylic. On the truck, there'll be square ones, there'll be longer ones, there'll be wood ones. Just use what you have without breaking anything. So for this one, because I have this readily available, I'm going to use these and place them in the center to make sure that the height is even from here to here, here to here. Additionally, you can also just use a base plate. So when you're doing the 3 video wall setups, you won't need to use a shim because there will be a base plate in the middle. But because we don't have a base plate in the middle, I'm using these acrylics as a shim to keep it even. Now that we have our truss set up, we're ready to start laying out our panels. Don't worry, we're almost halfway through and the hardest part is already done. Now it's time to have some fun. In here are where we're going to keep our video wall panels. This particular set comes with 10 in each box. You must always take care when handling these. They are very fragile. The corners easily get damaged. Don't remove one from the box until you're absolutely ready to put it up. Don't remove them and just line them up against the wall. When removing the panel, make sure you go straight up. Even rubbing it against the side can damage these little pixels that are on here. Each one of these little dots is like a light bulb. So when one of these gets damaged, you'll have black spots in the screen when it turns on. So you always want to be very careful how you're handling these. First thing we're going to want to do when setting up the panels is to make sure that we get the amount of clamps that we're going to use. We're currently setting up a wall that is 6 feet tall and 10 feet wide. So we're going to be using 4 clamps to secure it to the truss. This is a C-clamp with a bolt. This is what we use to secure the panels to the trussing. For a video wall that's 28 panels, which is what we're doing, 6 feet tall by 12 feet wide, we're only going to need 4 of these clamps to secure it to the wall. So what we do is we take out our clamps, lay them out, make sure that they all match, the sizes match of the clamps. We make sure the sizes match because we don't want the wall to either lean forward or back. Sometimes we actually do want it to lean forward or back. If the base that the video wall is going on is very uneven, then we'll use a shorter clamp at the top or a longer one at the bottom. But for our purposes, since we actually spent the time to make sure that it's very level, we want to make sure all our bolts are the same sizes. And the way we do that is to lay it out, put one on top of the other one, and then make sure the sizes match. See, now I have my 4 bolts ready, and I'm ready to secure my first panel to the truss. Once again, when I'm removing the panel from the box, make sure that I'm going straight up and taking care not to rub it against the side and damage any of the pixels. What I'm doing now is I'm going to attach the first clamp to the back of one of the panels so that I can structurally put it up. Because we're building a 28 panel video wall, we're going to do 7 across on the bottom and we're going to go up 4 high. So for our first one, we're going to go on the back and we're going to screw it in to the top left hand corner, like so. Open the clamp and screw it in. Not too tight where it pushes out the panel, just enough that it's snug in there and it's going to hold the video wall up. The clamps don't hold the weight of the video wall. What they do is they hold the video wall from tipping over. The video wall is supported by the base that it's on, going up and down, not back to front. That's why you don't have to make sure that this is super tight. So now that I have my first one secured, I'm going to take my panel and secure it to the truss. The first one where we place the clamp is very important because it sets the way the rest of the video wall goes. So the first thing we're going to do is open the clamp, like so, and we're going to place it in front of the truss. We're going to push it up so that it's in place with the truss, like so. Now we're going to close the clamp and tighten it. As with the screws for the legs, we're going to tighten it, but not overly tighten it. Just enough that it's secure because we want to be able to get it off later. Now our first one is secure. Now I'm going to get another panel out of the box and I'm going to secure it to that one. You'll see on the back of the panel, they have locks on all 4 sides. You see the locks on all 4 sides. These secure it up and down. These on the side secure it left to right. So for the bottom panel, we're going to secure it to the left to the right. So I have my second panel, lining it up against the first panel, and you'll see as I'm lining it up, it's not flush. This is too high, so I'm going to remove one of these acrylics to get it to be flush. Now you'll see that it's perfectly even and I can continue building my wall. I line it up where it's exactly next to the one next to it. Then I'll push this lock through. I'm going to push the paddle up, make sure the panel is lined up, push it through, and then we're going to push the paddle down as such. And we're going to repeat the same thing on the bottom. Paddle up, push it through, down to lock it into position. Now the 2 of these are one piece. See how secure it is? When it's locked together, now it's not 2 panels, it's 1 panel. Now we got a flow going. I'm going to take my third one. Again, I'm lining it up, making sure that it's flush with that one. Paddle is up, push it through, paddle down to lock it into place, paddle up, push it through, lock it down to push it into place. Now my third one is going. See, now we really have a flow going. Let's do number 4. We're lining it up. I'm using my finger to make sure it's flush. Paddle is up, pushing it into place. Paddle down, paddle up, push it into place. Paddle down to lock it together. And now we're also going to have a measurement problem possibly. Remember, when I say that we use shims to make sure that this matches this. So again, when we push this one to this one, we're going to make sure that this panel is flush with the top of the one next to it. If it's not flush, the bigger you go, the more problems you're going to get building your video wall. You're going to want to repeat the position that this one is locked, or this one is secured to the truss. I'm going to repeat that on this truss. If you go around and you'll see it's not quite lined up right where it's supposed to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Gavin push the truss over a little bit to make sure that it's lined up and I can put the clamp in. When it's locked together, it's essentially one piece of video wall. Yes, it's a little bit heavier, but it's still one piece. So I can take this handle, lift up the entire row while Gavin pushes it over to make sure that it matches where I'm going to put the clamp on. This hole needs to be lined up with where this is, so that way we can secure it to the video wall. Gotcha. So what I'm going to have Gavin do is push it over so that this hole is straight with the truss so that we can secure it. And while he's doing that, I'm going to lift this so that it doesn't scrape the video wall panel. And sometimes it's only just ½ an inch. It doesn't have to move 100 inches. So now that I have it lined up, now I can secure my clamp. Make sure the clamp is open. Push it out a little bit. Make sure the clamp is open. I'm screwing this bolt into the top right corner of the securing hole. Again, not too tight, but secure. Now I'm going to pull it back out, make sure the nut is flush inside the clamp, make sure it's straight. Now I'm going to grab the video wall and push it towards the truss. It's still a little bit off, so I'm going to have Gavin move it this way just a little bit, just like ½ an inch. There we go. Now it's flush with the truss, and now I can secure it to the truss. And now we're going to tighten this one, but we're not going to make it too tight. Just tight enough that it's secured to the truss. Before I put on any more panels, I'm going to check the positioning of the wall, make sure that it's still in the center. Moving it, you see this came off a little off center, so I'm going to make sure I push it back in the position that it was. I've got 5 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So number 3 is the center. I'm going to use this handle as the center, so I need to match this up to where the center is. So the whole wall needs to go this way. And in order to do that, Gavin is going to go on one side, I'm going to stay on this side, and we're going to physically push the entire thing over to the center. Always do this with a person. Ready? 1, 2, 3. You see how it just slides? And you can do this when there's only a few panels. If you build an entire wall, do not attempt to move it. And now we're centered. Now we can put in our final 2 panels on the left and the right. So again, I'm grabbing a panel out of the box, making sure I take care to go straight up. Going next to it. I'm lining it up. Top to bottom, make sure it's lined up, front to back. Make sure it's lined up, push the paddle up, push it through, and then pull the paddle down to lock it into place. Same thing with the bottom. Make sure it's lined up, paddle up, push it through, like so, and then push the paddle down to lock it into place. Now the hardest part is done, the first row. Now we're 70% done with our video wall, physically. You see how sturdy it is, and it's together and nice and level. So for the next row, we're gonna start in the middle and build it in a pyramid shape. We don't necessarily have to do this with a smaller video wall, but it's good practice to do it, because when you get to the bigger video walls, you can't build it line by line. They have to be built in a pyramid shape, or else they won't lock together properly. So what I'm going to do is take one panel, go around the back. I'm going to line up the holes, place this one on top, like this. And it's going to be the same as from the sides, but only from the bottom. So push the panels toward the right, we're going to push it up, then towards the left to lock it into place. Push it up, then towards the left to lock it into place. Now it's locked into place. I'm going to repeat with one here and one here. So now again, I'm lining up the holes, nice and flush. Paddle to the right, push it up, towards the left to lock it into place. Push it up, then towards the left to lock it into place. I'm also doing the sides. Before we were doing one side, now we have to make sure all the sides are locked into place. We already did the bottoms, and now we have to lock it side to side. Paddle up, push it through, put the paddle down. Paddle up, push it through, put the paddle down. I'm going to put one here, lining up the holes. Paddle to the right, push it up, towards the left to lock it into place. Paddle to the right, push it up, then towards the left to lock it into place. We'd have to make sure all sides are locked together. So I'm going this side since it's connecting, paddle up, push it in, pull it down, lock it into place. Paddle up, push it down, lock it into place. Now the reason I do a pyramid is because the bigger it gets, it's easier to get them to lock together when nothing's touching. If you go left to right, it's fine on a smaller video wall, but once you get to the larger 50, 20 feet high video walls, you have to do it this way in order to get a good lock into place. So my strong recommendation is no matter what the video wall is, always do a pyramid. Now that it's 3 high, I'm going to finish the second row, because on the third row, we're going to repeat what we did with the clamps. As the wall starts to go up, you can't see in front of it, so that's why there's someone on both sides. He's going to hand it to me on the front. I'm going to go from the back. Again, paddle to the right, push it up, left, lock it into place. Paddle to the right, push it up, left to lock it into place. Same thing again with the left to right. Paddle up, push it, pull it down, lock it into place. Push it through, lock it into place. This is our last one for the on this side for the second row. Locking it into place. Put in again, paddle up. It sounds repetitive, but it needs to be repetitive so that way you just starts to get a really good flow. So now we're ready for our third row. We're going to finish starting from the middle, going right to left or left to right, whatever you prefer. So we're going to go right to left to the truss. We're going to match where we put the clamp on the first row on the third row. So because we put it on the top right of the bottom one right here, we're going to match this one on the top right on this row with the clamp to secure it to the truss. So we're going to open the clamp, push it down a little so we can screw it in. And we should put the clamp on somewhere where it's secure on the floor, so that way you can get it straight in and not fight with it when it's up. Yeah. I like to put it between my legs to make sure that it doesn't fall and it's nice and secure. And when I put it down to rest on the stage, I'm being super, super gentle with it. Like extremely gentle. And I'm cradling it with my knees to make sure it doesn't fall. I'm opening the clamp. I'm tightening it just enough to make sure that it's secure to the frame. And I'm pulling the clamp back out and open. Now I'm ready to secure it to the truss. Line it up with the holes. It's a little tricky here. You got to make sure that the clamp is open. And you see on this one, it's between it. It's going to fit. Go from the bottom. Make sure we secure the bottom first so it doesn't fall. And then, instead of securing the sides first, because we need a little bit of give back and forth, we're going to secure this clamp first. We're going to secure it to the clamp, to the truss before we secure the other side. So now that we make sure that is secure, now we're going to lock the sides up, push it through, pull it down. Paddle up, push it through, pull it down. Now that's secure, now we can finish our row. I'm lining it up with the holes. Working with two people is important because as the wall gets bigger, you can't see on the side of it. So he's going to stay on this side and pass me the panels. I'm going to stay behind and actually secure them in. He also, being in the front, can help me make sure that it's lined up properly before I get to secure it. So for this one, take the panel, and I'm going to put the clamp in. I'm going to match it to where it's on this side. Versus that one where we did the top right, this one is on the top left. So on this one, we're going to install the clamp on the top left. So just as before, I'm going to take the panel, make sure I put it down very gently. Very gently, very gently. I'm holding it between my legs. I'm opening the clamp. And I'm going to screw it in like so. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Again, I'm not tightening it too much, just enough to secure it to the panel's frame. Now I'm going to pull it back out. Make sure the nut is secure in there. Now I can put it back up on the truss, like so. I'm going to pass it back to Gavin so he can line it up. And with the other side, I'm not going to lock the sides just yet. I'm going to close the clamp and lock the clamp, to secure the clamp to the truss first before I lock the sides into place. Now that this panel is secured to the truss, I'm going to lock the sides together. It's not fully flush on the front, so I'm just going to use a little bit of force with my fingers like this, line it up, push it through, panel down. Now it's locked into place. Paddle up, push it through. Now it's locked into place. For our final one on the row, we're going to go back to what we were doing before, lining it up, going from the bottom, making sure the bottom is locked into place before I even take my hand off of it, making sure it's secure. You see how I never take my hand off of it before it's secure? Now that these two are locked, now I can have my hands free to do something like lock them together. Make sure the paddle is up, push it through, pull it down, lock it into place. Paddle is up, push it through, pull it down to lock into place. And now that this is the last row, it can go either way, left to right. We don't have to finish with the pyramid because this is the top row. So we did all the hard work by making sure all the rest of our panels are together and level. So now we have an easy time just laying out the top row. Sometimes you might need a ladder as the walls get bigger. This is only a 6-foot wall, so I don't necessarily need a ladder for this. But for an 8-foot wall, absolutely make sure you have a step ladder or something, because how else are you going to reach it? I'm a little short. Maybe you're taller than me. I don't know. We're on the 4th row, but because we've already secured it from the 1st and the 3rd row, the 4th row does not need a clamp. If I was going up another row, I usually tend to skip a row with my clamps. So if I had 5 rows going up, I would do the 1st row, the 3rd row, and then the very, very top row I would do. And with this, we are physically done setting up our wall. Now it's just wiring it and doing the data lines. Now that we're done setting up our wall, we're now behind it. As you can see on each panel, each one gets a power and a data line. So we're going to start from back here. As you'll see, there are 2 different colors. Blue is power in, white is power out. So on this side, it's going to go out to the wall. For this particular setup, because it's only 28 panels, we're going to run 2 power lines of 14 panels each. Each power line can run 10 to 15 per panel, which is why it's important that you determine your power first. So these are our PowerCon cables. These are the jumpers, and this is the data cable, but we're going to start with the power first. So my first power, I'm going to skip this one because this one is going to the wall. I'm going to take my first jumper, I'm going to go power out of this one, kind of turn it to the side. You see these little nubs, they can only go in a certain way. First one, I'm going to put it in like so. Line up the little holes. Where are they? There they are. And then until you hear a click. From that one, for this one, we're going to do a zigzag power lines. You can either go all the way across, but for this, we're going to go up, across, down, across, then back up again to give 14. So since this is my starting one, power out from this one is going to go to the power out, white to blue, blue to white. So white to blue, and I'm going up. White to blue. Dead simple. And again, it's very simple, just up and down. So now that we're up, we're gonna go across. Power out on this one is gonna go to the power in on this one. See, I've started here, I ran my power up, across, and down, going out from here. So now we're gonna go across to this one. We're gonna line up the little nubbies, stick them in like so, twist it till you hear it click, and then we're good to go. Then we're gonna go white to blue again. We're gonna go power out of this one, click, twist, to power on the top of, power in on the top one. And we're gonna count real quick. Let's see how many we've got so far. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're gonna do 11, 12, 13, 14. We're only going to do 14 panels per power line. We do not want to overstress the wall by putting 20 on one and 10 on the other. You should always split the power evenly. Ideally, if there was a generator here, I'd run 4 separate power lines, but sometimes in catering halls you have power constraints. You can go up to 15 panels per power line. And this is going to be our last one for this power line. That's going to be our last one, so we're going to start all over again. I'm going to leave this one free because this one is going to go to the wall. So this one is going to be free. I'm not connecting it. This is going to be the end of the first power line. This is going to be the start of the next one, so I'm leaving this one free. So I'm going from this one, from white. Again, I'm leaving this one free because it's going to the wall. And I'm going to start all over again running power lines. So I'm going to go from here.
So just say, this one's going to be a part of the second power line.
This one's going to be as part of the second power line, so this one is going to be free. So to start, I'm going to go from here to the one next to it. Twist, click. From the one next to it, then we're going to start the up and down again. We're going up and down, blue to white, twisting, making sure it's locked. Because sometimes they'll put it in and it won't lock, and then you'll have an issue why it's not working. Just gotta make sure that you hear the click with every single one. Now, again, blue to white, blue, white to the blue. I'm going around the truss, just be careful. Put it through the truss like so. You don't want to go through the truss with this one because this is a shorter cable. Now obviously you can't go around it. So just carefully stick your hand through to get it in there. And now for our last row, we're just going to go up and finish at the top. And now that we're finished with our jumpers, we're going to run the main power line to the wall. This is the second half, so it's going to start right here. These are the longer power cables. It has the connection on, same connection as the jumpers on this end. This end has the connection to the wall. Each case of the video wall has one of these inside of it. So I'm going to connect this to here. And then now I'm going to connect this to the power in the wall. This part is where finding out where your power receptacles are, that their separate 20 amps come into play. We don't want to plug them both into the same outlet because then it's going to short the outlet. So we're going to plug this one into one outlet that I know is separate from another one, but because I think all of these are on the same circuit, I'm going to run a second line somewhere else for the secondary one. So we're going to plug this one in here. Now I'm going to grab an extension cable and run this one to another part of the room where I know for a fact that the cables aren't on the same circuit. Too many things on the same circuit, it trips out, everything goes up, down, and then the party is ruined and it's your fault. Don't be that guy. In this case is where we keep our heavy duty cables that we use exclusively mostly for the video wall because they draw so much current. Why they're so big is because they run a lot of current through them and we don't want them to heat up and get damaged or damage our video wall. So we're gonna look in here, pull an appropriate cable out. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I like this one. These cables are usually 50 to 100 feet. They'll go out on jobs, especially like in a tent or something where we know that the power is gonna be a far run. A lot of times in places in Manhattan, you'll need to run in different parts of the room just to make sure that they're not on the same circuit. So because I know the way this room is set up, I'm gonna run power from one side back to the other side. We also need to power our processor, which controls the signal for the video wall. It uses a very little bit of power. So what I do is I'll use a power strip to tie in the processor, only the processor because it uses so little power, to the video wall. I'm not gonna tie in speakers or lights to the video wall. A power strip in first, then I'm gonna plug the video wall into the power strip so that I now have an extra receptacle for my processor, which we normally put in the back. If you look on the back, you'll see every panel has lights on the back of it. And you'll see a couple don't, which means I missed something. I missed, which one did I miss? I missed the top. Let's do the top. I missed this one. So now that has a light, that has a light, that has a light, that doesn't have a light. Now, every single panel has a light on it, and you'll know that, that's how you know that your power is run properly. Before you even do anything else, you just make sure that your power is run properly. Every single panel has light. Now that we're done with power, now we can start doing the data lines. This is a data line. It's essentially just a Cat5 cable. That's how the processor talks to each panel. So the panels get jumped together just like the power does. So that way the processor knows each panel and can tell each panel what part of the picture to present to the audience. This particular video wall can only do 20 data lines per panel. This wall, which is a 3.9 wall that we have here, can do 40 lines per panel, so I'm only doing one data line. But because this one is more high definition than this one, it can only do, the processor can only talk to 20 panels at a time per data line. So we're going to segment it so that we have the panels lined up properly. For this higher definition video wall, we're going to run 4 separate data lines from the processor instead of the one that the lower resolution data line would. Looking at the back of this panel, the left side is the input for the data line, the right side is the output. We're going to use the left side on each one of these 4 panels on the side to talk to the processor. So this is going to connect to port 1 on the processor. This is going to connect to port 2 on the processor. This is going to connect to port 3 on the processor. This one is going to connect to port 4 on the processor. From the processor, each one is going to go straight across and connect 7 on it. So what I'm going to do now is use the little jumpers to connect the 7 data lines straight across on each row, starting with the bottom row. So from the data out, I plug in here. Then I go to the data in on the panel right next to it. Left side is data in, right side is data out. So now I've joined those first 2, and I'm going to go across in one complete row. So I'm going from the data out on the second panel into the data in on the left side of the third panel. Data out, data in, data out, data in, data out to data in, data out to data in. When we're running our main power line, I typically like to keep it neat because neatness counts. I'll feed it up the truss. And then over to where it needs to go. Like so, to keep the back neat. And then we have our power. Make sure it has a little bit of a slack and it's not too tight. Like that. He's finishing up the data lines. Again, he's going left to right, data out, data in. From the third row and the fourth row, we're just repeating the data out, data in from the first and second rows, and we're going straight across. doing it this way because this is a higher resolution wall that we can only do 20 panels per data line. Because neatness counts, you can either put the extras back in the case or make sure they're nice and neat, like so on the truss. I tend to keep extras here just in case there's a data cable failure or a power cable failure. I don't have to run back to the truck to look for a cable. They're right here, nice and neat. So if this cable's failed, I can just pluck one from here and then replace it as needed. Now that we have our video wall all wired up and powered up, now we can set up our processor. We have several different processors. This one is the one I typically use with the higher resolution wall. We're putting it on top of here, or if there's not enough room and this is against the wall, the processor could also go right behind the wall like here. If you have room, you can sit back here and make this your workstation, or you can place it down here. I tend to typically put it on something if I have the room. So I'm opening my processor. There's only one in each case on this one. Some of them have two in each case. This one only has one in each case. Each one has the power plug inside of it already, with a connector, a locking connector on the back. See where the connector locks? We're going to plug that in here. And we're going to plug this end into the power strip that we installed earlier for the first one. Go. Now we're going to remove the front. And don't lose these case handles. Keep these together. I'll typically just lay them out flat somewhere nice and neat so they don't get lost. And now we have the front of our processor set up. This is the video wall processor. This is essentially the brains of the video wall that turns each individual piece into one big TV. This is where you're going to plug our HDMI from. This is going to do the scaling. This tells each panel where it is. Because right now, it's just a bunch of different individual TVs. This turns it into one TV. This is the case that I keep my each HDMI or Ethernet, or one of the cases. We have several for each video wall. And you'll see they have a bunch of different Ethernet cables, so you'll always have enough for each job. This is a Ethernet cable. They're the same as the shorter ones, but it just has the longer length. So I'm going to take one of sufficient length. I'm going from output 1 of my processor. I'm going to plug this one in here. Then I'm going to go into the input of my first row. So again, output 1, I'm going out from port 1 of my Ethernet port on the back of the processor into the input of the first row. I'm going to put my wires nice and neat. I'm going to grab another Ethernet cable of sufficient length. I'm grabbing another Ethernet cable of sufficient length. I'm going to make sure they have both of the ends to clip. Okay. And for this one, I'm going into output 2 of the processor, okay, into the second input of the second row. I'm going to put those down neatly. So now I have 2. I'm going to repeat. Now I'm going to do the third row. I'm going to look for a sufficient length cable. So for the third one, I'm going out of number 3, port number 3 on the back of the processor, into the input of the third row. Again, I'm going out from the output of the 4th port on the processor into the input of row number 4. And now our video wall is set up and we can start programming the processor. Now that all our cables are connected, we can start to turn on our processor and start to program it. The power for the processor is on the back. Now we're going to power on our processor on the back in the top right corner above the power plug. We're waiting for it to boot up because it's essentially a computer inside, so we're waiting for our computer to start up. So it takes about 30 seconds to a minute for it to boot up. And now that it's booted up, if you check on the back, you'll see that it has the second light started to blink. If they're blinking all together, when they're blinking like this, that means there's no data connected to it yet. But you'll see that they're all blinking in sync. You'll see that they're all blinking in sync, which means that all our data lines are properly connected to the processor. is blinking rapidly like that because it does not yet have an input. And if we go around to the front, there's not yet anything on our screen because we do not have an input yet. So before we start to program the processor, we're going to have put together an input. An important step, a lot of the videos that you'll see, they use a computer to program the processor. When we're doing rectangular and square walls, there's not even a need to use the computer to do it. You can quickly program your processor from the front screen of your Novastar processor. Let's do that now. This is our video rack laptop. This is what we use to play content on whether TVs, video walls, and things of that nature. Again, with the top, put it somewhere nice and neat. It's going to contain a laptop, the power plug for the laptop, a connection cord, video splitter for TVs, but for our purposes, we're just going to open the laptop and boot it up. This is the power plug for our video rack laptop. We use this laptop to play any content, whether it's for a video wall, for our TVs, it comes in this case. Again, make sure that you're putting the top away somewhere nice and neat. We're not just throwing it away so that we can find it at the end of the night. We're making sure that we're noting all the different cables and things that come inside the video rack and that they go back in at the end of the night. So what we're going to do for our purposes, we're just going to power up the laptop and plug it in. And again, this uses so little bit of power, we can plug this in to that first data line, power line for the first row of the video wall that we have our processor in. Wherever the laptop processor in, you can always plug a laptop in it as well. Not lights, again, not lights, not a sound system. Little things that use very little amperage can go in the same line as this. I'm going to boot it up and turn it on. And let's grab an HDMI cable. There's also always HDMI cables in here. We don't need a very long one today. This is an HDMI cable, and the reason we know it's an HDMI cable is because of the way this end is shaped. For this particular application, I'm using a shorter cable because the processor is right next to the laptop. We also carry cables 50 feet. We have 100 feet cables, so wherever you need to be with the laptop versus the processor, we can reach. There's two schools of thought. Some people always place the processor near them and then run longer Ethernet cables, which is fine. Me personally, I typically keep the processor by the wall because I use so many data cables, and I'll run a longer HDMI to it. So I only have to run one cable. Instead of in this, I would have to run 4 cables to get the processor all the way across the room if we were in a bigger room.
So now, where does this go in?
So now the HDMI cables on these laptops are usually on the sides. On the PCs, they could be on the left or right. On MacBooks, they're usually on the right side. So we're going to go into this HDMI port here on the laptop. Then on the back of the processor, so on the back of the processor, we have several HDMI ports. We have port 1, we have a loop, and we have port 2. In addition to being a video wall processor, this is also a video wall scaler and switcher as well too. But we typically just use it for scaling and video wall processing. So we're only going to use HDMI input 1, but if we had 2 laptops, technically you can plug them into here and use the front panel as a video switcher. So we're going to go into input 1 on here, and now we're connected. The password is usually written on our laptop, so they're going to be right here. So I'm just going to put the password in real quick. And we have some content up already in here from our last party, so we're going to use that. I know this processor is already set, so let's double check. It's already set, but we don't want that from the last party. So I'm going to mess it up so that way we can set it properly. We're going to factory reset the processor. This is our menu and select button, this knob. So you press it in, scroll down till it says factory reset, press it in, scroll down to reset all. We're going to go to yes, and then we're going to press it in, and that's going to be a factory reset. The processor is seeing the wall now is only 1 panel. We now have to tell the processor that we have 28 panels and in which order we wired up our panels in. So the first thing we're going to go do, we're going to press it in. We're going to go up to scroll up to screen configuration, press enter. We're going to quick configuration, press enter. Now you see where it says 111? That's what the processor thinks. He thinks there's only just one panel. We know that we have 28. It's going to ask us cabinet row quantity. Rows are how tall we went. So we know that we went 4 tall, so that's going to be 4 rows. So we're going to press enter. I'm going to scroll over to 4 and then press enter again. Now it knows that we have 4 rows. Now we're going to press enter. Now we're going to go down to cabinet column quantity. We know that we have 7 columns. So now we're going to press enter and press 7. Go over to 7. Now we have 7 on that one. Now we're going to go port 1. It needs to know how many cabinets are on port 1. We know that we put 7. So we're going to put this port 1 quantity. We're going to put port 1 quantity on 7. So I go down, press enter, scroll to 7. And now let's go look at the front and we'll see what we have. The picture is up, but it's still kind of jumbled. It has the correct amount of cabinets, but they're just not in the right order. So we now need to go back to the processor and tell it which order that it's in. It's always good to have someone in the front if you have this set up in the back. If you're by yourself, put this to the front so you can see this next step. We need to tell it the data flow that we hooked up the Ethernet cables. So we're going to go down to data flow, press enter, and it's going to give us different options for the way that the wall is wired. You're going to scroll through these, and your partner is going to tell you when it's even. See, I'm scrolling through, looking at my partner. We're going to use that option right there because we have it going from left to right with the data. So that's going to make sure our image is good. Then we're going to press this in to lock it in. Now we're going to press escape to go back to the home. Now let's go look to see what we have in front. We need to tell the processor to scale it out to take up the entire screen. And lucky for us, without having to use a computer, there's a 1-button solution for that. On the VX1000, there's a simple 1-button solution to scale. You hit the scale button right here, and your image should be perfect. Voila, we now have a perfect video wall. And that is how you hook up a video wall. And then I'll play some videos so you guys can see. Now our wall is up. A good tip, gaff tape is your best friend. Not only does it allow us to neaten up our wires and give a good clean look to our setup, it allows us to, if we have any gaps in the panel that can't be avoided and it's not getting taped enough, a small piece of gaff tape like this, especially if the back is a bright window, if there's a gap right here, as I can see through the video wall with that little gap right there. Small piece of black gap tape. Now that black line is gone. Step and repeat that for every little gap that you see, especially if you have the wall set behind an open window or if it's outdoor and you can see behind it all the little gaps. So now everything is up and it's working. Your party is over and it's time to break it down. Before we even physically break down the wall, we need to take care of our equipment that we brought with us. So any laptops that you have, first thing we're going to do is power them down. I'm going to power down my laptop and start unhooking and putting away cables. Almost in reverse order, but we just need to make sure that we're doing it in proper order and putting things back the way they go. So now my laptop is shut down. I'm going to remove my HDMI cable, move my power cable, make sure everything that it came with is back in the box. My case that I put away neatly. Close that up. We'll put that away. Now we're going to go to our processor. We're going to power off our processor. We're going to remove the HDMI cable, all the data cables, and we're going to remove the power cable. It's going to go back inside the processor case. Make sure I put the cable inside. Now we can begin removing the power and data from our video wall. I start with the power it off, and you can just basically start plugging out the cables. When you're putting the cables away, try to keep them together because now after this we're going to put them back in the proper boxes and we're going to count them out. So keep the power jumpers together, keep the power cables together, keep the data cables together as well. So I'm going to start gathering up all the data cables while he's gathering the power cables. Now that we have all our cables down from our video wall, we're going to put the cables away first before we start pulling down the panels. Now that we're ready to put away our cables, because these cases come with 10 panels, we're going to put 10 of these Ethernet in each case, 9 of these power jumpers in each case, and 1 of the PowerCon to Edison is going to go in each case as well. And there's going to go on the right side of the case, there's a pouch that will carry all of the wires. So we're going to make sure that each case gets back the correct amount of wires that it's supposed to get. So that way next time that we open the case, we have everything we need in it to build any kind of wall. Especially because from week to week, we never know which kind of wall we're going to do. So that's why we don't keep one case with only the wires in it. One day I might have 15 panels, so I need to send out only these 2 cases and know that they have all the wires in it. One day I might have 100 panels. I need to be able to send out my 10 cases, have all the wires without having to count the wires in each case each time. Now that the party is done, we're going to slow down a little bit. I know you're excited, I know you want to go home quick, but slowing down and taking your time will actually get you out faster if you do it right than if you do it wrong and then have to redo it again. And it will save you from getting phone calls and meetings about why the equipment is messed up. We will need to take care of our equipment. So as we put it together in a pyramid, when we take it down, we're going to go in a reverse pyramid and start with the middle first while leaving the ends secured, and we're going to do the ends last. So the first one I'm going to take down is this one in the middle. I'm going to go up, up. I'm going to push the lever in, hear it snap, hear it snap. Do the same thing on this side. I'm going to go up, up, push the lever in, hear the snap. Now 2 tops. Now I'm going to do the bottom to the right, push it in, snap, to the right, push it in, snap. Then I'm going to grab these handles, go straight up like this, and I'm going to hand it to my partner in the front. It's important, you must have 2 people doing this in order to not damage the video wall panels. Remember, we're not putting them down on the floor, we're not leaning them against the wall. They're going straight from being up back into the cases. So I'm not even taking down my next one until I know that he's ready for my next panel. So we're going to start with the side, up, up. I'm going to press it in, hear it snap, hear it snap. I'm going to hold it to the right, snap, to the right, snap. Now he's ready to take down that second one. Watch how he's putting it into the case, nice and easy. He's not rubbing it against the side to mess up any pixels. And he's making sure the handle is down. Because the whole top row doesn't have any clamps, I'm just going to go ahead and take down the whole top row. Notice I'm holding one hand onto it before I unclamp it so that way it doesn't fall. I've got one hand holding securely here, turning to the right, press here and snap, turning to the right, press here and snap, now it's ready to come off. But you see I'm never letting go so that the panel doesn't fall and get damaged. I'm going to make sure that he has his hand and he's got it secure before I even let go. Now I can let go and it's going back into the case. You see we're taking our time, but it's still going very fast. And it's also going to go faster on the next setup because we took our time, we made sure that everything went back in the boxes correctly. Very important, the row with the clamps go absolutely last because we want the wall to still be supported while we're taking it down because it can still fall while we're breaking it down, which is why we take it down, leave the clamps last, and I'll go to the next one or one in the middle first. Taking this one down, but I'm going to leave this one because it has the clamp, and I'm going to go again to this one. So I'm leaving these 2 because they have clamps, and I'm going down to the next row. As you can see, by keeping the ones with the clamps still on, we maintain the integrity of the wall, and we don't have the danger of it falling on us while we're working on it to put it away. Now that we fully have everything disconnected, now we can start taking down the ones that have the clamps. So I'm going to hold right here, unscrew, open the clamp, and you see even if he lets go, because there's not that many panels, it's still secure. But he's still going to hold on to it anyway. I'm going to unsecure the bottom. The first one is good to go. These clamps must come off and go back into the proper hardware bag that it came out of. Clamps are gonna go right back into my hardware bag. Remember earlier we said not to screw them too tight because we have to get them off. I've had nights where I've had to hammer it off because someone screwed it too tight. Now see, it just easily comes off, but it was still very secure. Now the clamp comes off. Nice and easy how it comes off because we made sure it's tight and secure, but not too tight. And now we're done breaking down the actual video wall. Another key tip, we don't close the actual cases till we know it has everything in it. Till I know it has 10 panels, has all the cables, the case stays open. That way we know there's nothing missing from it. I know that these, once it's closed, it's ready to go outside and go on the truck. I know that if it's open, there's something missing from it and I need to count. He's not gonna close this case until he knows he's counted everything. And now that he knows everything that's in it, he'll close the case and he'll latch it up. And now he knows that those are ready to go outside. So what's left? Now we just have to break down our stages and our trussing, which is basically essentially the way we went back up. Make sure that you're doing it with a partner, even though some of you guys are real strong. Some of this stuff is heavy, it's the end of the night, you're tired, you're gonna slip and trip. Always have a partner to help you for safety, so that way you don't hurt your back. Remember earlier we talked about not hammering in the pins too tight. Now watch how easy the pins come out. The little 2 taps and it's gonna come right out. What I do, so they don't fly out, I stick my hand here, 1, 2, simple. 1, 2, see that one is even more simple. Hand here, pin's done, the truss comes up, never leave it standing straight up, and we're gonna lay it out flat. It's ready to go back on the truck. The pins are going right back in the bag with the video wall hardware. Same bag with the clamps. The pins go right back into that bag with the clamps. And it also gets, so this, see how it says ready to go on a job? That means when you get it, you're confident that you have everything that you need because the person before you took the time to put everything back in the bag. Once again, when we're taking the truss down, we're not gonna leave it standing up, especially in the catering hall with nice floors. They'll tip over, drop, break the floor. We're gonna put it on something. Pro tip, you don't always need a cart. All your cases have wheels. Use your cases as a cart. So I'm stacking my truss on top. Now I can just push this whole thing to the truck without having to carry each one simply. We talked about before you needing a partner with lifting these. You absolutely should use a partner when lifting these because they're very heavy. I'm gonna give you a tip to be able to get them off easily. Take a pin like so. I'm gonna stick it through here like this. Now I have a handle to lift it. Now I can lift it off by using the pin. Now we can grab it and put it on the cart. Stick it in, use it as a handle to pick it up. Now I can pick it up. So now that we're all done, this is something you're gonna like. Here's a quick tip. We use a suction cup to break down our stage. The suction cup is usually found in the tool bag. Every tool bag has one. You're gonna take one end, like that. Look how easy that comes up. And we're gonna put it right on the cart. Grab one, right on the cart. In. Right onto the cart. And we're gonna repeat the same thing with the bigger acrylics. They're a little heavier, so make sure you get a good grip. Lift, put my fingers under, get a good grip. Quick tip, the edges of these tend to be very sharp, so it's always a good idea to wear gloves when handling these, because the edges tend to be very sharp. Velcro, just peel them off, stick them up. I grab our wrench and we're gonna loosen, do the reverse step, counterclockwise. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey is a good trick to remember. So every time you're unlocking something, we're going lefty-loose and the right if we wanna go tight. Now we're all done. That, Gonna lean it up, take the legs out. Remember, we didn't tighten them too much, so now the legs are gonna come out quite easily. 1, 2. Just one spin, it comes out. Because we didn't tighten them too much, just enough to make sure that it was secure. And we're gonna make sure our legs go back into the bin that it came out of. Making sure they go right back into the bin. Just remember, repetition is the mother of all skill. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it and the more you'll join it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next job.